Hello everyone, it's Old Guardian here. In this video I want to talk a little bit about the Fractured in Alterac Valley early meta and about possible balance patches, because we know that a balance patch is coming. There were no balance changes before the World Championship, but shortly before the World Championship, Celestalon tweeted this. Yep, here we are. Balance changes will come as promised. Many of those decks will be getting hit. And what Celestalon is referring to, those decks are the decks from the World Championship, which is very combo oriented. 24 out of the 32 decks are combo decks in the World Championship, and the rest are like Libram Paladins and Pirate Warriors and stuff. So I expect these nerfs to come on Tuesday, but what should they be? What would make Hearthstone meta good? Looking at win rates of all the decks, the meta doesn't seem that bad. There are like lots of decks that are viable. But then when you start to look deeper into what's going on in the meta, for example looking at what cards are being used, then you come to statistics like this one. These are the two most popular cards in the game at the moment. Rusted Viper in 40% of decks, Mutinous the Devourer in 25% of decks. And well, Rusted Viper has two main targets in the meta. There's the Ruined Meteor Rod from Warlock, and then there's Lightforce Cariel's 2/5 immovable object. While Mutinous the Devourer is anti-combo, just generally anti-combo, destroying whatever combo minions you have. Overall, archetype-wise, the meta resembles very closely the early United in Stormwind meta. The early United in Stormwind meta was heavily combo aggro meta. Either you play combo decks or you play aggro decks that are the only things that's fast enough to beat those combo decks. And now, back in United in Stormwind, there were multiple balance patches. Each of them were trying to make the combo decks just a tiny bit slower, and a tiny bit slower, and a tiny bit slower, trying to work towards a more mid-range meta. Never a control meta, but a mid-range meta. So that's kind of what I expect Blizzard's balancing philosophy to be also for Fractured in Alterac Valley. They're going to try to slow down the combo decks by a turn, by 2 turns, maybe by 3 turns, something that makes it possible to succeed with other than pure aggro strategies. However, there is also one deck that is not a combo deck and not an aggro deck in the meta, and that deck is Paladin, and Paladin is very good. And by far the best card in Paladin is Lightforce Cariel. When they just jam the Lightforce Cariel on the board, patow, then pretty much any mid-range deck just instantly crumbles, aggro decks crumble, combo decks, well, some of them even can't push through that, so Lightforce Cariel definitely has to be one of the cards that's going to be touched right. It seems unfathomable, because touching one of the key legendary cards this early in a new expansion, it's not really a very Blizzard-like thing, but Lightforce Cariel is just too good. Especially the immovable object part. I mean, the hero power is also strong, but you can play around with that hero power. You can even play around with that hero power with a control deck. You can exhaust their resources, then they have nothing left to buff. That is possible. But the immovable object is just phenomenal. I'm not sure how they would nerf this. Would they make this so that when they hit Cariel, this starts to lose durability, or otherwise starts to lose durability? What can you really do about this? But something has got to be done about Cariel. One of the options, of course, is that they just increase the mana cost of the card. That's a very traditional Blizzard-like thing, but something has got to go. Then the other part of our weapon removal tech meta, and why is weapon removal tech so prevalent and it cannot be really healthy, so the other one, Ruined Meteor Rod. Already nerfed once, still a great card, just makes Warlock combos faster, makes them more effective, makes them bigger, just accomplishes so many things, so this has got to be nerfed. Also, nerfing this is convenient because it nerfs both the old TK Warlock and it nerfs the Fatigue questline Warlock, which is still there in the background, waiting for old TK to get nerfed, so then it can come in and replace that. So nerfing this happens to nerf both of those OTK archetypes. So yeah, whether mana increase is enough, maybe it's not, maybe it is. Or maybe just removing the tourism effect and making it so that it discounts only the drawn cards or something. But probably something has got to be done about the Meteor Rod. And I think another card that has got to be touched is the Snowfall Guardian. Currently, Snowfall Guardian, Brilliant Macaw, Shaman can lock the board for 4 turns, and that feels so incredibly bad. Shaman is very good at just preventing any board-based strategies, and that is so anti-Hearthstone as anything can be, so probably they will need to touch this one. Touching this one is also a convenient way of weakening the Bolner OTK Shaman, because the Bolner OTK itself existed already united in Stormwind, but it was not played because the deck didn't have enough stall tools, so it wasn't good enough at surviving. And if you nerfed Snowfall Guardian, then you nerfed that deck's survivability, so okay, both that deck cannot survive so well, so an OTK deck nerfed, and the more aggressive free Shaman decks cannot lock down boards so effectively, they cannot just prevent you from doing anything if you're playing a board-based deck, so another upside. And then there is the quest of Garrote Rogue, and Garrote Rogue, it just keeps going, doesn't it? It's not really a deck with mass appeal, especially after the latest set of nerfs, but now that it got scabs in the expansion, so it became a little bit better also for the layman again. And of course, very high skill cap deck, very liked deck in pro circles, and something has got to be done about that to keep it from dominating the formats. Especially the Conquest format, where it is very, very dominant right now, which is why it's brought in 7 of the lineups in the World Championship. And Efficient Octobot kind of seems like the most obvious candidate for nerfing, because making discounting more difficult means that the combo is going to be even more difficult to play, and at some point it's just going to collapse. It just won't be possible to navigate through all of that complexity. One thing that Blizzard also talked about earlier was that if United and Stormwind decks are too good in Fractured in Alterac Valley, they are going to be touched, and there is one United and Stormwind deck, wholly United in Stormwind cards, not a single new card, that's doing real well, and that is the Quest Pirate Warrior. And Quest Pirate Warrior, how would you touch that? And I would probably touch it by touching Mr. Smite. Mr. Smite is by far the highest performing card in the deck, and if you were to simply, for example, change it from your Pirates have charge to Mr. Smite having charge, then you would avoid all of these situations where after the quest has been completed, there's a random Mr. Smite or a Mr. Smite from hand with another random pirate from the Juggernaut, and then a couple of other pirates from hand, and boom, 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 just so much damage coming right towards the face. Obviously, Mr. Smite is a legendary card. Blizzard might be a little reluctant to give those dust refunds for legendary cards, but still, that would be my choice. It is by far the best card in the deck. So that would be 5 nerfs, and I would put in a 6th nerf. And the 6th nerf that I would do would be for Mosagi Master Duelist. Mosagi Mage is already a playable deck, and if you nerf the other OTK decks, then that makes Mosagi Mage even stronger, and that would not be a great position to be in. So I think Mosagi Master Duelist has got to be made slower. That keeps in line with all the other OTK deck changes. They're not completely killed, but they're made slower and slower until you get to the point where mid-range decks are able to challenge them, but still not so slow that they would succumb to control decks. There are also some cards that are borderline too strong, but I don't expect to be nerfed. One of them being the Dreadlich Tamsin. Dreadlich Tamsin, Battlecry, deal 3 damage, shuffle 3 rifts into your deck, draw 3 cards. Okay, I could maybe see this as being the 7th card that is nerfed with a 1 increase in the mana cost or something, because Tamsin is very, very strong. However, it currently hasn't been that oppressive, so maybe it is skipped and not touched in this round. Then another card that people have been worried about, which is the Alignment Druid, Anaconda Druid, Celestial Alignment. And it's paid 0 mana crystals, set the cost of cards in all hands and decks to 1. But if you think about, like, what is Blizzard trying to do? Blizzard is trying to promote a slightly slower meta, but not a control meta. They want to enable like mid-range decks, in addition to aggro and combo decks. And Celestial Alignment right now, it's really punishing combo decks. It's already not having a good time against aggro decks. It's not having a good time against mid-range decks. So once combo decks are nerfed, Celestial Alignment problem kind of solves itself naturally. You don't actually have to touch the card. It's fine. The rest of the meta will find a way. And finally, there is the bane of combo players, the Iron Deep Trog. Have the opponent cast a spell, summon a copy of this. This is a candidate for nerfing, but I don't think it's going to be touched in this round, because once we get to a position where we get to more minion-based meta, then Iron Deep Trog can be more naturally answered with minions, because we're not playing solitaire decks so much anymore. So when you touch the problem points, you touch the Paladin and you touch the OTK decks, then that will result in less need for Mutinous, less need for Rust Viper. We will get out of this sort of tech card meta, and also we're going to start seeing more mid-range decks, and that's going to naturally solve issues with Trogs and issues with Celestial Alignment. It's important to keep in mind that Blizzard's goal is not to reinvent the game. They are not going to try to bring control back. That's not on the agenda, but they're trying to bring mid-range back. And for that, these changes would be sufficient. We should find out about what the actual changes are going to be either tomorrow or on Tuesday, so I'm really waiting to see how correct or wrong these predictions will turn out to be. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the content, please click the like button, subscribe to my channel, and check out my Twitch channel.